Hello, everyone, and welcome to the spoiler review episode for the third episode of What If, here from the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey, this is probably something. This is one of those things we should have talked about before you hit record.
I like to be improv, man. I dig being improv, and you coming up on the fly. I'm always better on my thinking on my toes than I am, thinking ahead of time. So at least when it comes to this. But yeah, unfortunately for this episode, we do not have Michael Vogel. We do not have Emma 5. Emma 5 still recovering from COVID, begged off on doing the episode. She thought she'd be strong enough, but she had some kind of, she was just a little bit exhausted and felt she didn't want to cough through the whole episode, which we totally respect and understand. I'm sure she'll be back next week. Michael's out of town on a vacation, couldn't get the Wi-Fi signal strong enough to join us. So Shannon and I are putting this thing together, and we hope you'll stick around and hear our thoughts on this particular episode of What If. Shannon, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you doing? How are things? Are you excited to talk about episode 3 of What If?
Yeah, this was a very, very different episode. I mean, and not that 2 episodes in you can really kind of establish a formula or a pattern outside of the basic what if something were a little different. This one was definitely a departure from those first 2 episodes.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great point, Shin. Yeah. Oh, are you hearing me? Did I lose you again? No. Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries.
Somebody called and my AirPod switched over.
Okay.
I'm very popular. A lot of people call me.
All right, let me cue you again so I can edit that more cleanly. Yeah, and this episode is called What If the World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes? Shannon, what are your overall thoughts on this episode before we get into spoiler territory? We're going to get into spoiler territory. Shannon, what do you think overall of this episode?
I mean, it was a significant departure from what the first 2 episodes were. I mean, 3 episodes in, 2 episodes in, I don't think enough has happened for us to have sort of an established pattern or formula outside of the what if premise, that what if something were just a little different. But this one was interesting because, again, based off of the old comic series, you could have issues that were just kind of that were funnier, that were sillier, but also you could go to the other side of the spectrum where things were a little grim. And this one definitely introduces us to a world where not everything has gone according to plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, I would say, the most original of the first 3 in that, we kind of saw in the first episode, it was basically, you could boil it down to a little bit of a rehash of Captain America First Avenger. Obviously, there were other things involved there. The Captain Carter did really well. And then the second episode was really just the basic framework of Guardians of the Galaxy, and throw some things and make some twists or decisions about characters overall and how T'Challa really kind of can change everything. We're walking into this with one storyline about Nick Fury bringing the Avengers together and what that leads to. And I think this one opened the door up to a lot of interesting avenues and a lot of interesting paths to walk that I thought were a little bit more original than the first 2 films. And I liked that. Oh, first 2 episodes, rather. And I liked that. And, we got to see Betty Ross again, which we haven't seen in quite some time since Liv Tyler played the character way back in 2008. And I really appreciated that. We got to see a little more with Black Widow, a little more of her solving a case here. It was almost like a mystery episode, to be honest with you, a detective story, ironically, in the middle of the MCU, but yet went all the way out to Asgard and stuff. So I liked that the episode had a big scope and a small scope at the same time, telling the story of the Avengers. What if the Avengers had not come together? What if something else had gotten in the way of that happening? So let's get into it. We're going to spoil it. Here's your last warning. If you haven't watched this episode, go watch the episode and come back and join us here as we talk about it. All right, I'm going to go through the days, Shannon, and we'll go quickly. Maybe we'll combine the days into sections so we can just talk about it overall. We'll do Monday and Tuesday first. Basically, this whole episode is told in day breakups: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Monday and Tuesday. With Monday, we see Nick Fury and Black Widow are meeting up with Tony Stark at Randy's Donuts. By the way, shout out to Lake Bell, who is the voice of Black Widow in this episode, and they're trying to recruit Tony Stark to the Avengers. And Black Widow injects him with something, thinking it's going to cure whatever's been going on in his neck from the Iron Man 2, but it ends up killing him. And the Watcher tells us of Iron Man 2, the Hulk and Thor joining up as the Avengers in a different timeline. This is another timeline. And we go to Tuesday. We see Thor's hammer with Coulson and Fury. And we see Black Widow with Ruffalo. She has been arrested for killing Stark. Fury and Black Widow walk separately. And he tells her he knows she's innocent. And someone in S.H.I.E.L.D. is setting them up and wants her to figure it out. Gives her a little thing to get out of her cuffs. And then we go into the truck. And Ruffalo is saying, I don't know what the big deal is about Black Widow. Sure, she can throw a punch, but you got to be, she does it when you're not looking. A nice little reference there. But Black Widow, meanwhile, in the back of the truck, has gotten out of the cuffs and is knocking everybody out. Ruffalo stops the truck, jumps out, opens the door, and Black Widow has disappeared. And then we go to Hawkeye and Fury talking about the hammer. Thor is knocking people out, trying to get to the hammer. An alarm is sounded. Coulson sees him, and he's got great hair, and he's gorgeous. Hawkeye is in the crane, has his bow trained on him. Thor's about to pick up the hammer when he is shot by Hawkeye. Hawkeye says he didn't shoot, but there's an arrow in Thor. Hawkeye is arrested and imprisoned. Thor is dead, we find out, and Fury is talking to Coulson. Coulson tells him that Hawkeye, while Hawkeye's in the background in the cell there, Hawkeye's not talking to anybody. Barton's not talking to anybody. He keeps saying that it wasn't him, that he doesn't miss. He doesn't do that. So he says Barton doesn't want to talk to anybody. Fury says he'll talk to me. Fury walks in, talks to Barton. Barton doesn't move. He touches Barton. Barton falls over, and Barton is dead. So right off the bat, Shannon, we've got Tony Stark dead, Thor dead, and Clint Barton dead. 3 of the founding members of the Avengers are dead here, with Black Widow and Fury still rolling around and Coulson still walking the earth. What did you think about this whole intro? And did you start to suspect who it might be?
Probably yes. Based off of Thor, that is where I'm like, oh, I wonder if it's this person. So when the episode started, I mean, that is literally right before Iron Man 2. I mean, you get Sam Jackson's great speech of, there was an idea that a group of people like from the Avengers, and Lake Bell, who does a terrific Scarlett Johansson, interrupts him, kind of, cuts his legs out from under him with like, I've heard the speech. And then she's like, are you sure you want to hang the Avengers initiative on this guy? And he reminds her like, hey, I was able to recruit a super spy from Russia. Like, I like taking a big swing. Right. And so the scene literally plays out the exact same way, leading up to Natasha giving Tony that injection in his neck. Right. And boom, he falls dead. So naturally, she's the one who did the injection. Naturally, you think it's her. Right. I thought it was so funny as Ruffalo and the rest of the what are they, tactical guys? Sure,
S.H.I.E.L.D.
Bring her out. That they actually animated Callan Mulvey's Jack Rollins character, who was kind of Ruffalo's number 2 in Winter Soldier. The guy he also was in Batman versus Superman. He played a Russian character
with the flamethrower. Yeah, that's it.
Yes. And so you see how good Natasha is. That, I mean, Fury is saying like, I believe you're innocent. I'm going to give you this one thing, and that's going to help you get out of here. And then when we go over to New Mexico with the hammer, remember, this is something that like I certainly forget, but Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, and Thor take place all in the same week. I mean, that's from Phase 1.
Yes. Yeah.
So the idea that because Tony Stark is dead, Sam Jackson is now able to be in New Mexico when Thor arrives at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters in the hammer. Good point. So not Nick Fury. No. Barton.
Barton.
I was trying to say Jeremy Renner. How one very funny moment that he's just like, even Jackson can't lift his hammer and he does CrossFit. There is in Thor 1, there is sort of an announcement of like, hey, so and so get there, and they do say Jackson. So I like that kind of hooks up.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, you see Coulson still has his affinity for superheroes, like staring
Yeah.
at Thor and his hair. Uh, Barton has the same response as well. Like, wow, the guy really does have great hair.
Coulson wasn't lying
And
about his hair. Yeah. He's gorgeous. Yeah.
and who knew that a well-placed arrow could kill an Asgardian?
Right. Right.
I
Right.
mean, that was certainly shocking to me. I'm like, there's no, like, it can't just be a regular arrow. It has to be one of his sort of trick arrows, a special arrow. But no, like a well-placed shot from a skilled archer, even accidentally, was able to take out an Asgardian.
Yeah.
And then when Sam Jackson goes in, also we find out right then, Sam Jackson says Barton has a wife and kids. Like, he would not do this.
Right. Right.
And we didn't find that out until Age of Ultron.
Right.
And the fact that Fury is telling Coulson this, like, this is obviously new information for everyone.
Mhm.
But he goes in, Barton falls dead.
Yeah.
But I think after Thor, I was just kind of like, it's probably this person, and we'll discuss more when we get to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of what you said that has perfect connections here in what you're talking about. And you have to know the Marvel movies to see the places that they're referencing within this opening first 2 days here of what's happening. So we go into Wednesday, and look, and I'll say this about the episode. I should say this before we go on. I really like this is kind of a Black Widow light episode. Like Black Widow, we saw the movie, and now this episode comes out. It kind of shows you that there was more to explore here with the Black Widow character if they had just kind of leaned into a little bit more from the beginning. There could have been a whole trilogy of Black Widow movies, Shannon, now looking at how she's being used if they had this approach and attitude and point of view back when the Avengers were first being put together, back when the MCU was first being constructed. So although it's not Scarlett Johansson doing the voice, I still think it's great to see the character doing her thing, investigating this stuff and exploring what's happening. And speaking of that, we go into Wednesday, and Black Widow is heading to Culver University in Virginia. I don't think that's a real university, but I don't know. I lived in Virginia for many, many years. Never heard of Culver University. But that's me. Anyway, she comes up on Betty Ross, who is voiced by Stephanie Panicella, does a really great job as Betty Ross, tells Ross that Stark was murdered and asks her to analyze the syringe. And the reason is because she doesn't want this to be on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s radar, and Betty has done a really good job of staying off of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s radar. She analyzes the syringe, says that the needle probably fired a tiny projectile and that the antidote never left the syringe. Black Widow asks if it's nanotech. Betty Ross is not willing to commit to that. She's like, I don't deal with any of that. You deal with that. Now get out of here. But just as Black Widow's maybe getting ready to leave, she spots a cap and I think an apron or a t-shirt or a polo shirt from a pizza parlor. Jacket. Sorry, from a pizza parlor. Fury calls to tell her, just as she sees this, that Hawkeye is dead. And there's a great pause here. Some great animation being done here, Shannon, where you're watching the face process the news, and we know the relationship between Barton and Black Widow now in retrospect. At that time it was strong as well, but in retrospect we can really see this moment affect Black Widow in a powerful way. She is not happy and says, tell me who I have to kill. And then she starts to kind of analyze who's left with Fury over this Avengers initiative and realizes that her and Banner and Fury are the only ones still left standing, and then goes to the door because she suspects Banner is there. Betty tries to stop her, says, move or I'll move you. And Banner comes out and says, violence, we don't need to be resorting to violence. That's not going to work out well for anybody. And it's great to hear Mark Ruffalo voicing Banner as well. We cut to Coulson, who's driving down a road, and we see the Watcher in the background watching Coulson. And he's getting a call from Fury, and it's a coffee run or whatever. Got him his macchiato, and just then a Bifrost portal appears, and Loki, Thor's homies, and the Asgardians, and the Destroyer all land there on Earth. Nick Fury comes out with his boys there in the trucks and the vans. Loki tries to boast about himself, but Fury's cell phone keeps going off in the middle, which I thought was a great moment of comedy. Ross shows up to confront. Betty Ross shows up to confront. Thunderbolt Ross shows up to confront Banner and Black Widow, and then someone shoots Banner without Ross's permission. Ross yells out, "Who did that? I didn't give the order." And then we juxtapose. We go back between these two scenes. Loki pulls out what I think is the Tesseract. Hulks out as Loki frosts up all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s trucks and vans. Betty tries to stop Ross, but Black Widow grabs her just as Hulks out and explodes, Sif stops Loki back in that section of the episode as Fury convinces him that they should work together to find who killed Thor, and Loki gives Fury until the next morning or the rising of the Asgardian sun or whatever he says to find out who did it. So let's just take this day because a lot happened on this day here, Shannon. What do you think about how they did stuff? Reintroducing Betty Ross, in essence, kind of opening the door to the possibility that we may get Liv Tyler back or somebody back as Betty Ross. The idea of Banner and her being connected in this universe, even though they're not as connected in the universe that we've had. Also, Coulson and Fury furthering what's going on here, and the appearance of Loki. What'd you think?
Okay, so starting with Black Widow approaching Betty Ross.
Yeah.
What's fun is, remember, these two are in our universe are the loves of Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, here's the potential love triangle that would have happened in our universe. As they're talking about the needle and the tiny projectile, if you had any doubts who the assassin was, that adjective should have been a pretty big giveaway.
Yeah.
When
the nanotech, that was the giveaway. Yeah.
When she spots the red hat and the windbreaker, that is the same pizza parlor from Incredible Hulk that Ed Norton, which, remember, it wasn't Mark Ruffalo, it was Ed Norton. Ed Norton had that jacket on. Ed Norton was the one who posed as the pizza delivery boy for a little bit so he could get into that lab. Right. When Mark Ruffalo then comes out, you get some of those same lines, mirror of those same lines that he said in Avengers, like, let's not do violence. That's not going to work out for anybody.
Right.
And then when we switch over to Coulson, Clark Gregg, we haven't seen him in the movies since 2012. Like he was killed in Avengers. He was then resurrected for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. television show. Coulson was a great character for the few appearances that we got. And he does some really fun work in this episode.
Yeah.
As we get to Loki and the Warriors 3 and the Asgardian army's entrance. So that is not the Tesseract. That is called the Casket of Ancient Winters.
Okay.
And this is the weapon that Laufey used in Thor 1. And then they ended up putting it in Odin's treasure room.
That's right.
Which, I think Hela saw it in Ragnarok and was not as taken with it as she was, obviously, the Eternal Flame or whatever it was. Right. But the thing with the Casket of Ancient Winters, and I don't know where in the timeline this works out, but to use that weapon, I think you have to be a frost giant. So at this point, Loki knows, and you would think that the other Asgardians know. Right. Also, because it's like they've been sent to avenge Thor's death.
Yeah. So
again, I don't know where this works out in the Thor movie timeline. So it's like, okay, Odin is in the Odin sleep.
Right.
Loki knows now. So, and also, based off of the Loki series, we've seen the character development that he has, that he does have some affection for his family and for Thor. Right. Is he, where is he at this point? Is he just using Thor's death as an opportunity to go take over a world? Or does he honestly want some justice? I mean, it certainly seems like the former. Yeah. He doesn't seem that torn up about Thor being dead. Yeah. And then we cut back over to the university. We get Black Widow busting out of the glass and doing her pose, which, Yelena called her out for in the Black Widow movie.
She's a poser. Yeah.
And then we get, some fun action. And then the Hulk blows up. He Hulk explodes. The moment that happened, I was just kind of like, oh my God, are they actually going to? Yep, he blew up. I thought for sure, okay, this is going to kill him and he's going to shrink back down. But no, he actually blew up. Wow. And that was certainly one of the more shocking moments of this episode.
Yeah. This is murder. What is happening here, by the way? Killing Barton, killing Thor, killing Stark, and then killing Banner. This is murder that's going on here, and it's pretty overwhelming to look at as you watch it. Yes, and by the way, the animation incredible in this. Love the animation in this episode, but the what's happening here, the weight of it starts to hit you after the Hulk situation. It starts to feel like, oh man, what is really going on here? You appreciate that Marvel's willing to kind of walk into this PG-13, maybe R-rated territory a little bit by showing these deaths. All right, we head to Manassas, Virginia next. Black Widow is at a library trying to get into the Avengers Initiative file using Coulson's password, which is very, very funny. Steve, I heart Steve 0704. I think that's right. But just as she's accessing the file, she hears someone behind her. Then she turns back around to the computer. She opens up a few files, sees that a woman who died 2 years ago accessed the database. We see that I think it's Hope Van Dyne that comes up with the X mark, or is it Janet? One of those comes up with the X mark. She calls Fury, but just as she calls Fury, Black Widow is attacked by something she can't see and leaves a message for Fury as she's dragged away about hope. It's all about hope before she's taken. Coulson and Fury have an exchange, and he says he's not the only Avenger left. He grabs the beeper for Captain Marvel, but doesn't use it. And the clue that Hope, because we went to the diner, the clue that Black Widow left on his voicemail message finally hits him about Hope. So he puts the beeper away and heads off to see Loki. He goes up on the destroyer. The destroyer is standing guard. We head to Thursday. Fury shows up at Hope Van Dyne's headstone. Hank Pym is the one who shows up looking like Yellow Jacket, like we saw Corey Stoll in the first Ant-Man movie. He is mad because Hope and Janet have died in the same way in service of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury asks Pym if it was okay to kill all the heroes as a result. He is maniacal, and then he tells, or we flashback as he talks about his anger towards S.H.I.E.L.D. and Fury. We flashback to see all the different ways that he killed everyone, that he killed all the heroes that he killed, and Fury gets him to admit that he killed Thor. Fury, all of a sudden, Yellow Jacket attacks him, and Fury goes toe-to-toe with him. I will tell you this. When he smacked Yellow Jacket down, in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute. And then when he started disappearing, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And he is kicking Yellow Jacket's ass, and it becomes clear that this is Loki. Fury hands him over that Loki has been tricking him. Then Loki shows himself. Fury walks out from behind him. Fury reminds Pym what S.H.I.E.L.D. stood for, and then hands him over to Loki as Pym yells at him to honor Hope. And Loki says he wants to stay. And we cut to him going to the United Nations, announces that he has united the entire world under his command. And we get his "you were made to be ruled" speech. Fury and Coulson talk about the Avengers idea over the caskets of these fallen heroes, saying that the Avengers idea is an affirmation of humanity's need, that in their darkest hour, they will find their heroes. And we go to Fury finding Captain America's shield as Captain America Marvel shows up. And yeah, I think we are headed to a way bigger universe within this What If now. It seems like we're setting up Loki as the big baddie as we go forward here in this What If universe. Okay, so what did you think of all of this here with the Hank Pym revelation here? Black Widow kind of discovering what happened, and I think dead as well, killed by Hank Pym as well. Then Loki and Fury working together to trick Pym. Fury being Pym being handed over, but in the end, Loki stays to rule Earth for now. So what do you think about this whole ending of this episode there, Shannon?
Very funny phone conversation between Clark Gregg and Lake Bell talking about Coulson's password. Like, I'm not giving you my password. It made me think of that Seinfeld episode where Costanza wouldn't give away his ATM code.
That's great.
Very, very funny interplay. But then as she does access the files that she can see who's looked up the Avengers Initiative, this is where I get a little confused. Okay. I wish Vogel and Emma were here. Yeah. But it shows Janet Van Dyne with a red X over her face. Right. She is someone that has looked up these files. You also see Coulson, you see Maria Hill. So at this point, I'm kind of like, okay, did Janet, maybe Hope popped up as well and we just didn't see it? But Natasha says, how did a woman who died 2 years ago access these files? And at that point, you see the lurking assassin. Mm-hmm. Black Widow does her best, but gets beaten. And also it looks like she shrinks, like she's reaching out for something and it looks like she shrinks.
Yeah, maybe.
Again, I might be wrong there. I don't think I am. One thing, I was pretty sure it was Hank from the beginning. Right. Okay. And this is not me, this is like one of the few times that I had a prediction and it ended up being right. I'm still on the Mephisto train. But I will watch the episodes with the subtitles on because I want to make sure that I catch everything. And when Natasha is saying it's all about hope, Hope is capitalized. And I was like, oh, so if you're watching this and you didn't know, this was a potential spoiler.
Right.
I love that Sam Jackson was in that same diner in New Mexico where Thor was, and he, breaks the coffee mug, asking for another. Yeah. Sam then going to see Loki. The sound design on the Destroyer still as impressive as ever. Like amongst the MCU movies, I think Thor is closer to the bottom of the list, but there were so many things about that movie that were fantastic. And the audio design is definitely one of them. Like, it was just great. I love that when Sam Jackson shows up at that cemetery in San Francisco, that's a similar shot to the Memorial Park for the Vanished.
Oh, yeah, Endgame. That's right. Good point.
It's a very, very similar shot. And then you see...
Well, isn't it also a similar shot to when they walk up on Fury's headstone as well in, was it Civil War when they walk up to
Winter Soldier?
Winter Soldier, that's it. Yeah.
No, because I don't think it's a big wide shot. I think it's closer in. I mean, the giveaway here was just the angle of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Fair enough. Okay, go ahead, man. Sorry.
But smart move on the filmmakers, because Michael Douglas is not listed in the opening credits.
Right.
So I was like, oh, that was a smart move, because again, that would have been a dead giveaway that Hank Pym is the guy. Right. So then when Fury says, Hope died, Agent Hope Van Dyne died in service to S.H.I.E.L.D. on a mission in Odessa 2 years ago. So this would be 2010, I think. So in Captain America Winter Soldier, Black Widow, I think she said, and that's 2014-ish. Black Widow says her first experience with the Winter Soldier, she was in Odessa 5 years before, smuggling out a scientist, and the Winter Soldier shot through Natasha to get to this scientist. So perhaps in this universe, it was Hope on that mission and not Natasha, and that is how Hope died.
Yep.
So I mean, I still get a little confused of like, okay, did Janet... Is she in the quantum realm in this universe, or did she die someplace else? Because what they're telling us is Hope died 2 years ago. So, but Janet is the one who accessed those files, at least according.
I thought it was Hank. I thought it was Hank accessing the files through Janet's password.
Well, no, Hank accessed the files, but he used Janet's password. So how was Natasha? How did she say? How did a woman who died 2 years ago? Hope's the one that died 2 years ago, not Janet.
Could he have used Hope's passcode?
I mean, Hope didn't pop up. It was Janet.
Right. It was Janet.
So that's why I was confused. Like, did Janet not get lost in the quantum realm? Did she and Hope both happen to die 2 years ago?
Maybe.
I'm sure there's something I'm missing that hopefully someone in the comments can correct me.
Okay.
But yeah, the moment that Sam Jackson smacks Hank down and then does that flip over him, and Michael Douglas with a great line like, you're pretty spry for a guy with a corner office. Great joke, great delivery. We quickly figure out it's Loki. And as this day ends, we think, oh, in this universe, Fury and Loki actually partner up. Nope. The next day, they're walking into the UN flanked by Asgardian soldiers. And you get that speech that he does from the Avengers. Like, you were made to be ruled.
Yeah.
Cut over to a S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters where they have all the bodies, which shocking to think that they would still have Thor's body. I would think the Asgardians would want that back.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. That's a good ding on the episode for sure. Yeah.
But again, maybe Loki doesn't care. I mean, maybe ultimately he just wanted to rule someplace. I love that Sam then goes and he wipes the snow off the shield and it says, "Welcome back, Captain." And that's what we, as the audience, we think he's talking to Captain America. But then we see that yellow glow, that golden glow, and he looks over and there's Captain Marvel. So in this world, the Avengers that he's assembling thus far, he's got Captain America and Captain Marvel. Not a bad start.
Right. But I mean, people thought that all these episodes connect possibly into an overall universe. So how can we have a Captain America when we've got a Captain Carter in this universe? So how are they
these two are clearly not. These aren't the same. I mean, these are different universes.
Yeah, it seems like different universes we're exploring throughout this thing. A lot of people thought this would be an overall MCU, but like I said, we've talked about in the last couple episodes that they revealed through some of the marketing or some of the toys that were released, the Guardians of the Multiverse. So maybe this is all of them from multiple universes being involved in this whole situation. So it could be curious if we get a Captain America who meets up with a Captain Carter, what that conversation is going to be like for sure. We'll love flourish there too. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I like that ending. I like that we've got Captain Marvel back. And of course, it's not going to be voiced by Brie Larson. So we'll see where she pops up. This is the extent to which I've been issued the episodes. I don't know 4, 5, and 6 or anything that's coming down the pike just yet. So I'm back in the camp with you all, just waiting for them to drop episodes so we can take a look at it. So I'm excited to see where we go from here. But I thought overall this is a damn good episode. Even better on a rewatch, where I was able to relax and just watch how they were laying the groundwork for everything to lead to where it's Hank Pym. And yeah, it seemed pretty obvious it was Hank Pym, especially once they said nanotech. That was a big hint for me. Then the Hope thing, and then smacking down Hank Pym when he's Yellow Jacket worked. But I like the idea that, yeah, in this universe, it isn't Corey Stoll's character that becomes Yellow Jacket. In this universe, it becomes Hank Pym, who was working on the Yellow Jacket stuff, who becomes Yellow Jacket and is consumed by that serum that is in Yellow Jacket, just as Corey Stoll's character was, and becomes
that, and also the loss of his wife, followed by the loss of his daughter, was enough for him to finally snap.
Yeah, to snap, exactly. And it wasn't like Hank Pym was a cool, level-headed guy to begin with. So yeah, he's the intelligence along with the anger combined for sure. So that made so much sense. So now we'll see where we pick up later on down the road with Loki in charge of this universe, what this leads to overall, and if Sam or Nick Fury rather now has to put together a new stable of Avengers to go and take on Loki, and where that leads us to for sure. So I'm excited for that. But I'm really excited that we got Betty Ross, dude. I mean, enough is enough already. Weave them back into the MCU. If you can't have Thunderbolt Ross, I'll be goddamned if you can't have Betty Ross. So bring Betty Ross back into the MCU. Whatever you want to bring Conley, you want to bring Liv Tyler, I don't give a shit. Bring Betty Ross into the universe once and for all, and cut it out with this Black Widow Hulk stuff, which I think they have. So let's have Ruffalo focus, or Banner focus, on being with Betty, and let's start that as a love affair in the second, or in the fourth phase of the MCU. I'd like to see that myself personally.
Yeah, I mean, I like, the only thing that we know thus far that Mark Ruffalo is going to be in is She-Hulk. And so I don't think it will be there, because he is essentially going to be a supporting character in someone else's show. Because I think they had said there were going to be 10 of those. So I highly doubt Ruffalo will be in all 10. Like he's going to be in like maybe two or three. I mean, it's ultimately going to be about Jennifer's journey and not Bruce's. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Like, they still can't do a solo Hulk movie, as I understand it, because the rights are still tied up with Universal having the distribution rights. So at this point, like, I don't see a way for them to bring her back. But as we know, like, Marvel has years and years planned that we don't know about yet. So maybe there is, what if there were a universe that Liv Tyler made her way back into a Marvel movie?
Well, and also, like, you know, they certainly worked it out with Sony to get Spider-Man. And I would argue that's probably a way more difficult task than getting Hulk from Universal. So clearly they didn't sense that they needed to necessarily get the rights from Universal to do a Hulk standalone movie. They don't sense that there have been 2 already that didn't do well overall. So maybe they sense they didn't want to go back to that well just yet. And when it's time to go back to that well, they will, and make a negotiation and do whatever they need to do to be able to get the Hulk rights to be able to do a standalone movie as well. But if you can show Betty Ross in the What If, you can definitely, I think, show Betty Ross in the MCU live action, I would think, right? I mean, don't you have to pay for the rights, animated or otherwise, too?
No, I don't think they didn't have to pay Universal for the rights to use Betty Ross. I think they just Marvel can't release a Hulk movie without Universal being involved. So and in terms Betty of Ross in the MCU. Well, but it just depends on like what the particular story needs.
Yeah,
like
true.
Do you like for however it turned out? I mean, the Black Widow Hulk romance worked on paper because they were on the team together.
Right.
They were around each other. That made sense. I mean, it just depends. Is there a story where Mark Ruffalo ends up being around Betty Ross again for this relationship to continue? It just depends on the story.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. All right, any final words on this episode, Shannon, as we head into the next episode here of What If, the 4th episode?
Well, I think they're definitely preparing the audience for not all of for some of these stories are not going to have the happiest endings. Hence, the zombies that we've seen in the previews. So that's not always. The what if isn't always going to work out for the best, a la T'Challa.
That's true. It's a good point. What if Avengers zombies? Oh man, that's going to be interesting for sure. Yeah, we'll see. All right. Well, let us know what you thought in the comments section below. Remember to hit a like on this video and share it on your social media. Mike's not here to do all this, so please remember to do that. Subscribe to the channel below. Hit that like button. And yeah, leave us a bunch of comments. What you answer Shannon's question. My theory is that Hank Pym accessed it through Hope Van Dyne's passwords, but maybe there's another theory out there you guys have of how he was able to have access to all this stuff. We shall see. Let us know. And what you thought about everything they presented here and this kind of alternate universe, alternate timeline, and all the stuff that happened. What did you think? Let us know. If you listen to the podcast, make sure you download the podcast. We'll go subscribe to there wherever you find the Geek Buddies. I'm sorry, wherever you download podcasts, go find the Geek Buddies, subscribe to it, leave us stars, leave us reviews, do all the positive things, and then share it on social media. That's how you bring more and more people to the table and grow the Geek Buddies Nation for sure. Shannon, what do you have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram, @Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow the absent Michael Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @The Rocha Says.
All right, there you go. Thank you all so much, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review episode of What If He